One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 7 of FX's Atlanta, entitled Trini to the Bone. That was probably one of the worst episodes of television I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. There's nothing redeemable about this episode. It's easily the worst episode of Atlanta, easily the worst episode of anything I've seen this season, and it was an active waste of time. You know, I just told a couple of friends of mine, like, really, you don't need to watch this episode. You will lose nothing by not watching it, you will lose nothing by not watching it, and you will lose 30 minutes of your life, waste 30 minutes of your life by watching it. This episode brought nothing to the table. Nothing at all. I can't even wrap my head around what the point of this was, why it was written, how they went through the whole process of filming something that was a complete and utter waste of time. This was a terrible episode of television, a terrible episode of Atlanta. There's nothing good to say about this. I don't even have to, like, look at my notes and go, this is what happened. There's nothing to say. I could shit on this episode with my eyes closed and just freestyle it off the top of my head. This was a terrible, terrible episode. I want to start, though, by saying that I've grown tired of these standalone episodes that don't involve the main cast. You know, it was okay the first couple of times that it happened, but now it's starting to feel like, this is what it feels like. It feels like after the 2 seasons, Donald Glover didn't want to make Atlanta anymore. And FX was like, look, man, we really, really want to make Atlanta. We really want another season. It's so popular. Everybody loves it. Please make another season. He goes, nah, I just don't want to. And they go, we'll pay you to write 10 episodes, but you only got to be in 6. All right. Like, it feels like they're actively making a point to not have the main cast in the show. Like, this doesn't just feel like a one-off anymore. It feels like they are only obligated to be in 6 episodes out of 10. So they're just going to have a bunch of episodes that don't have anything to do with the main plot line. The problem is the other episodes that were like that were still entertaining in their own rights in various ways. They told an interesting story just within that one episode. Now, whether you thought it was a story that you enjoyed, whether or not you found the episode funny, that varies from person to person, but it's pretty inarguable that they did tell a story that was of some sort of value. This episode, what an unimaginative concept. Like, wow, white people are scared and uncomfortable around black culture. Jesus fucking Christ. How'd you come up with that stupid fucking idea that no one's ever done before? Like, come on, man. And then, like, the whole concept is that this white kid is being raised by this nanny from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's picking up on her culture. And it kind of speaks to the idea that this nanny or whatever is more of a parent to this boy than his own parents. He asked for curry to put on his Eggs Benedict. He's watching The Proud Family. I don't know if too many people caught that. He mentions, like, the Trini to the Bone song that the episode is named after, and just all kinds of mentions of the nanny's culture and how he's so accustomed to that's what he wants in his life. And it's like, what? I mean, what a basic fucking idea, though. Like, there's no complexity to this. No imaginativeness, no creativity. It's just a generic fucking, like, another rip from the Twitter headlines. Like, oh, let's go look on Twitter, see what people are talking about. Oh, white people are uncomfortable around black culture, and they're letting other people raise their kids. Let's make an episode about that. It's like how we've got this influx of shows like Inventing Anna and The Dropout, and all of these shows that are ripped from the headlines. And I'm not shitting on these shows, by the way. I like several of them. But, these ripped from the headline stories that show, like, okay, we're not really interested in telling a new story. We're just going to kind of, like, adapt a real life story and maybe, like, exaggerate some of the details. And that's become a thing as of late. And I'm not particularly bothered by that. But this was not that. This was just like, let's take a story from fucking Twitter that's not imaginative, not creative, nothing at all, and we're just going to tell this. It felt like they took the week off Or like they took the however long it takes for them to get an episode together. Like they took that off. Like, yeah, you know, we got to do 10 episodes, but I really only got 9 in me. So let's just fuck off on this 10th episode. And then we'll put it in there at episode 7 and see how it goes. And it's barely funny. Like I said, it's not imaginative or creative. Again, they are purposely shying away from having the main cast in episodes at this point, I feel, because at least the other ones provided some value in that, like, you know, like the first episode telling the story of that kid and that white family that adopted him. That's interesting. That has some value. That's important. Like, hey, here's what happened with these people. You know, that's something that's you could see why they would make that diversion to tell like this creative kind of side story. With this, it's like I said, it just feels like I'm reading my Twitter timeline with this shit. And I don't understand why they thought this was a story worth telling. This completely unoriginal, unimaginative, uncreative story. And it's jarring how bad this episode is, particularly when you compare it to the rest of the series. And the rest of the series is looked at as one of the great things on television. You know, people were excited to get the show back after these 4 years gone. And now we've come back and we're 7 episodes in. 3 or 4 of them haven't even had the main cast in it. And now this episode is like, I mean, there's nothing redeemable about it. I can't say a single good thing about this episode. Like even the parts that were supposed to be funny were just generic, predictable network TV jokes about this white boy saying stuff from black culture. Like, oh wow, that's what we think is funny now is having a white person say like black shit. Like, no, man, like this show used to think highly of us, and this insulting, shitty fucking episode is what they put out this week in on the heels of all of the great work that this show has done to this point. They insult us by putting out this basic, generic, unimaginative piece of shit episode. Like, I can't get over how much I hated this episode. I can't think of anything positive, anything redeemable. If you don't watch this episode, it's not going to affect your experience with Atlanta this season. And if you do watch it, you're wasted 33 minutes of your life and you're not going to get it back. And you're going to wish you would listen to me and not watched it. But unfortunately, those of you who are watching this probably did watch that episode. And I'm sorry you wasted half an hour of your life on that piece of shit. What a bad fucking episode this was, man. I don't know. I can't even think of anything to even really discuss. You know, they take this kid to this funeral. One of the daughters gets up and points out how the woman spent more time raising this white kid than she did taking care of her own kids. The funeral scene is way too long. This dance number, this mention of her being related to a player on the Patriots. All of this is just weird and unnecessary, unfunny. Oh man, I don't understand any of these decisions. And nothing really interesting happens in that first 15 minutes. Like they're kind of setting the stage and slowly building up toward this idea that this boy is taking on some of this nanny's culture. And you get to about 15, 20 minutes in before we get to the funeral scene and they start to lean hard into it. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, they're building up to something clearly. And it's just a matter of whether or not what they're building up to is going to be worth it. And it wasn't. But they also built up this second kind of thing with this envelope addressed to the nanny that keeps popping up at their door. And I guess the husband of the family ignores it the first 2 times. And he opens it the 3rd time. And it's pictures of the nanny with the boy at his school's family picture day. And we found out earlier that his teacher had asked him why his parents weren't there. And now we find out at the end that the nanny was there, and she does like a smile in the camera that almost looks like I'm out here with your kid and you ain't doing shit kind of smile. And I'm like, that's the payoff for sitting through 32 minutes of this piece of shit. My payoff is that the nanny went to the family picture day. Like, who wrote this shit? Like this does not feel like something that the people who have been working on Atlanta up to this point did. Like they did this episode. It just doesn't track. Like, that was the big payoff. I had to sit through 32 minutes of this boring, shitty episode for the payoff to be that the nanny went to the fucking family picture day. Oh my God, man. What a shit episode. Yeah, I don't know what to say about Atlanta at this point. You know, I mentioned last week that I felt like it was leaning too much on pulling from the Twitter headlines and not enough on its own imagination and creativity. And that's what the show brought to television that was so invigorating, was getting this black show, but that was so creative and so groundbreaking. And for them to do this generic, shitty network television fuck-ass fucking episode is just, I don't know, man. I don't know what happened here. There's, I guess, 3 episodes left in this season. Season 4 is already done and being worked on, and I don't really know what to think about how these final 3 episodes could go. You know, the episodes that involve the main cast are the most interesting episodes, and they seem to be making it a point to not do that. And it really does feel like a situation where they wanted to get payment for, like, you know, like, hey, let's do a whole 10-episode season of Atlanta, and we only got to make the cast be in 6 of them. It really feels like that. And if that's what that is, I hope that they're satisfied with getting that deal, but I hope that they're deeply unsatisfied with all of the terrible responses to this lazy fucking episode. Like, I Googled the episode title, and like 2 of the first 3 results were like, Atlanta drops the ball for the first time, and Atlanta doesn't know what it wants to be anymore. And I'm like, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's all over the place, and whatever it is now is significantly less than what it was the first 2 seasons. So I'll continue covering this season. I have not been this hard on any episode of Atlanta. I don't think I've been this hard on any episode of television, because most of the time it's just aspects of an episode that I hate. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I hated this aspect, and for that reason, it ruined this episode for me. This whole episode is a piece of shit. Like, there's nothing good. There's no like, oh, this aspect ruined the episode for me. The aspect that ruined the episode is the entire fucking episode. I didn't need any of this. Nobody needs any of this. If you're watching this and you haven't watched the episode, I know me shitting on it might actually be pushing you toward watching it, but don't waste your time. Like, it's not good. There's no way you're gonna like it. I've wasted 11 minutes of my life talking about this piece of shit. I will see you guys next week for episode 8. Peace.